Right. So, making, that's not right. The forward. There are people that come and touch us, some to our very souls, and then move on, while others walk quietly beside us for many, many years. There, there are many that I thank every day for being there with this angry young boy and man trying to make his way. They gave me sanctuary from the storms with those quiet words of encouragement, love and wisdom that kept me safe. Some have passed over, and I still hear the whisper to me as I struggle with those demons within and the demons without. Thank you, thank you, thank you, with all my heart and being. I am grateful for you coming into my life at the times that you have. And so, with this, I will start. Making my way as a boy. Before I start, I need to say that this is about me, my perceptions, not only as an adult, but as a boy, trying to make his way in this screwed up world. I know my sisters have different memories, but perhaps this is because they were looking from their perceptions, colored by their understandings and knowings of people looking through younger eyes and minds. This is not to say what they saw, perceived, and understood, or even remembered isn't true, but they looked at and saw from a different part of the painting. Something else should be looked at and addressed here at the beginning. Something I've always in some way known is that this isn't all there is to life. After my grandmother, aka Doody, took over aka means otherwise known as, took over the raising of us for kids. She joined the Latter-day Saint Church, or the Mormons. This was, when I look back, probably what saved my life and kept me sane. My sisters and I excelled in the church youth programs and took to the teachings and scriptures, the Bible, blah, 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 and so forth with understanding and knowing. As teens, my sister Jenny and I competed in scripture mastery in seminary, a youth Bible class for want of a better description. And we were more often than not at the forefront in leadership roles within the various youth programs. The church taught that we choose our parents, we choose the situations we're going to be born into, and this instills an understanding and acceptance of pre-birth awareness and existence. We don't just spring into existence and know and then wink out at death. We are also taught we are here to learn and experience things we can't as spiritual or energetic infinite beings. I liked reading and discovered that a number of indigenous cultures believe in the cycle of life. See if I can find that. We come here and are given things to learn and overcome. Then we pass over to study what we learned before coming back to experience new or different experiences. And the cycle goes on. This, to me, has made the most sense of all the stuff I've studied. It is also a teaching that sits very light in my being. So with this, I will address a major question in learning before I talk about the journey this time. Understanding and knowing that I chose my parents and family to which I was born into puts the responsibility of what happens in my life squarely back on my shoulders. Knowing that I choose to have a father who is angry and controlling and everything else negative and positive, he did have some good traits too, that I choose to have a mum that would soon be absent in my life was also my choice. This means I can't blame anyone anymore. When this knowing finally cemented into my being, I was able to thank my father and move on. That doesn't mean I don't get angry and carry crap that still needs clearing. I just mean that I found a place to start moving to being lighter. I've also then been able to work towards healing and forgiving myself as well. Actually, forgiving becomes a word that is irrelevant as it becomes it just is. And they did what they did, knowing what they knew, with the skills they had. My parents both had very hard up childhoods and developed their life skills based on their experiences and observations. I do look differently at my dad, who later, when I was a teen, would go to church and sit in judgment of others. then come home and do what he did there. Some things were in total contradiction to what we had just been taught was right. But here again, I chose him as my father, perhaps to learn from him and to choose differently for my children. I've learned to be in service of others and how to enjoy whatever task you have to do at this moment. I was taught to be available to others in perceived need, and even to perceive their needs before they needed to voice them. I thank both my parents as well as my grandparents for the lessons I've learned as we have traveled this path. As I sit here typing, I ask that all who have felt judged or measured by me, that you will understand and forgive me and accept that I am still learning, as we all are, that together we can move through the remainder of this time, together working towards a space of non-judgment and acceptance of all we meet in life. This doesn't mean you have to tolerate my bad behavior or violence to self, but that we are all walking in awareness. We can move away from environments before these things can occur, or simply recognize and not allow those people to be in our space. As we live more consciously, we can move away, as did the wild animals of East Africa and Indonesia as the tidal waves approached their lands. It was only the unconscious humans and the domestic animals that perished. Many times we only remember only the good or only the bad. In truth, life is about both, and sometimes even filled with the so-so stuff that just passes us by unnoticed. All of these things touch us and influence us, and how we interact with the world. So who am I? Have you ever watched the musical Les Miserables? There is a song in the show where Valjean sings, "Who am I?" What a song. What a question to ask yourselves. As he asks this question, he is also brutally honest to himself with his answers. There are things that we retrospectively ask of ourselves as we go through life, as we try to come to terms with what we perceive as our life and who we think we are, and even of what we are. To those who share my indigenous ancestry, I am of the four winds. I whakapapa to the tau, Ngāpuhi. I to both the left kahununu and to the right wings, Ngāti Awa, as well as to the main body of the fish, Raukawa, Tuwharetoa, and Ngāti Pikau. Because of what I saw growing up in Ratahi, my maunga, my mountain, is Ruapehu, and my awa, river, is Te Whanganui. For those of the rest of the world, I am also of the four winds, and that I am Irish, Yorkshire, Norwegian, and New Zealand Maori descent. Well, where to start? I've had so many people tell me I need to write this down so others can see there is hope. And to be truthful, I've started several times over the years, but didn't like what I read and wrote about myself. I don't want to come across as poor me, or I'm special, as this is very far from the truth. We're all unique, and all have a special journey to be and enjoy before we are complete here. I've always believed there is more to this life than be born, live, drop dead, and cease to exist. I guess it has been that inner knowing that has kept me going most of my life. You know, that little voice in the head, and sometimes, and then not so little sometimes when it was important, that whispers, don't do that, or don't go there. Or it's happened once when I was 15 and about to drive off on an errand. A very loud, "Gregory, put your seatbelt on," sounded in my mind. I didn't make it to the shop, and the car I was driving was written off in the accident when a hit-and-run driver plowed into the side of the car. Needless to say, I've learned to trust these little promptings. So you can say I have always had my own proof of another existence. Let's just talk about this knowing and more for a moment before I start my story. A few years ago, I was struggling with yet another relationship coming to a close. My partner had decided to get a psychic and a friend to come and work on her. She also decided that I could also use some help. Of course, I agreed to this. During my session with the psychic lady, we talked about many things, including my ancestors, my tupuna, and our connection. and my 4 near-death out-of-body experiences. She reminded me that it was no wonder I was unhappy here, as I could still remember what it felt like to be out of my body and free. I don't talk about this much, as many times people scoff and tell me it wasn't real, just my imagining. It seemed the more I heard this, the more I shut the hell up. Well, no matter what these fearful and judgmental people say, for me it is real, very real. Since this time, I have heard others describe a very similar space, energy, and even events leading to their choosing to return to the body and heal themselves. Anita Mujani wrote in her book, Dying to Be Me. A friend of mine who had been skeptical of my story saw an interview she did with Dr. Wayne Dyer. Afterwards, my friend looked at me differently and said, she, Anita Mujani, describes it just like you do. So here goes, in brief, very brief. What drives me? The first 3 times I left my body was so amazing. There are really no words to describe the sense of being or the sense of joy and gratitude you feel. For want of a better word, because you don't actually feel anything. It's simply awareness. There is no judgment, just welcoming and gratitude and allowance. Each time I became aware of others near me, first just colors and energy, then slowly I was aware of form. I was also aware of the joy I had within as I moved at speed of thought to some I knew and recognized. And at this point I would hear, what are you doing here? You must go back. You must go back now. And I'm saying, no, I don't want to. I had my reasons. And after a brief discussion, I would be back in my body with tears on my face. The hardest thing was I still felt and remember that space. The energy, the joy. I was angry each time my friend died, and I wasn't allowed to. It was so unfair. Eventually, I let go and simply accept that I can't die. With this, I lost all fear. Even if I died, it doesn't mean the end. For me, it would simply mean a new beginning to embrace. This made flying easy. Coming into Wellington Airport during a storm was almost exciting, as it became a fun roller coaster ride for me. My partner was a little put out with my lack of empathy for her and the other passengers. The 4th time I left, my body was different. The universe, it seemed, decided someone needed to have a word with Greg, face to face, so to speak. A bee was passing from a passing swarm, stung me under my 4th toe on my left foot. Within 20 minutes, I was paralyzed and unable to move or speak. I could not make a sound. On the funny side, have you ever tried to blink loud enough to get someone's attention? It can't be done. I know. I tried several times. Admittedly, they were kind of slow, but very deliberate. All I will say is that when I gained conscious awareness of self and body, I was calm, incredibly calm and peaceful. I knew I had a job to complete. I knew it was important. This knowing has pushed me hard to make choices that have been hard and even hurtful to others. When viewed from the outside, I still remember the space and I still miss it, but differently. I know I can create and be that space anytime I choose. I do create this space each time I present a class or work with somebody in their body during a session. So where is all this leading to? Have you ever held a new baby? And I mean really hold the baby and been totally present with it. Have you ever looked into its eyes and said hello? What is it about this baby that makes this moment so special? What is it you become consciously or unconsciously aware of? Some people describe it as a taste of heaven. For me, I describe it as a sense of total trust and peace, the essence of real unconditional love, no judgment. Somewhere between that moment and when they grow up, they lose the space. We lost the space. I'm here to show you that it is not lost, just hidden, as we made ourselves less than so we could fit into this crazy reality called life. We are told we are dreamers, or too much, or too loud, or. I'm here to remind you of who you really are and how you can recreate you, and more if you would choose. Only choose to be you, whoever you are, whoever decide you are, at any given moment in time. And for crying out loud, stop trying to find the authentic you. What a load of proverbial crap designed to keep you searching and relying on some asshole to keep telling you you are nearly there. You are there and always have been. You are just under the rubble everyone else loaded on you as you grew up. All those comments, judgments, expectations, projections about who or what you are and what they want you to be. This is all to limit and define you. I'm here to invite you to be undefinable. Are you willing to be all things without significance? Here is an example. Pete, with me, petite moi. Definitions and labels of me. I'm Kuro, granddad. I'm Kuro egg, granddad. Opa, magic hands, healer, teacher, husband, father, friend, bastard. Yeah, some people don't like me. Business competitor, student of 60 years, home handyman, walking miracle, blah, 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 blah. Which one of these is actually me? These are all roles I play when required, but they don't define who I am, because the infinite part of me has been all things and still can be. How many times are we taught to look to others for the way to find us? We are taught to look outside ourselves to find happiness, joy, purpose, and even who we think we are or should be. I'm here to remind you to look within to that still space that is you. There you will find that you create all things for you. They don't come from outside. You create them. You choose them. You choose to be them. Every day till you no longer need to choose because you already are them. So back to the story. Whoops. In 1993, while studying at the University of Waikato as a mature student, what a label, I experienced what we thought had been my first stroke. Can someone remind me later to explain? During the whole experience, I felt an amazing calm come over me. Even though I couldn't communicate with my friends as they tried to keep me awake and breathing, all those things we think are important at a time someone is having a bad day, I was calm within. I felt almost as an observer. I also knew very clearly that I had had a stroke. I couldn't feel my left arm, speech was slurred, and something in my mouth got in the way and I couldn't speak. Everything came out wrong. A friend trying to keep me alert commented on how lucky I was as Elias's head got legless and couldn't talk. It had cost him a fortune and I had got there for free. I still get a grin when I think of that day and the way my friends worked to distract and keep me conscious. The campus doctor came along saying that I was fine and just hyperventilated. He hadn't done any of the checks he'd recently taught all the graduates to do when first aiding a student in distress. So the ambulance staff walked me to the lift, my left leg now dragging, down to the ground floor and out to the ambulance. As I was such a large fellow, 125 kilos plus, they in their wisdom decided that I would have to get myself into the back. And I did. And off we went to the University Medical Center, where we repeated the procedure in reverse. Except that as we strolled into the building, my left leg said no. Short story of the moment is everyone cleared the ways as I went down, and then they helped me up. By the time I was in the surgery, the doctor's consult room, my face was getting very numb, and the left side had dropped even more. A lovely nurse took one look at me, spoke the word bugger, rushed out and back again with the doctor in tow. He then said something under his breath, and off to hospital we went. Am I clear enough for everybody? Is it clear? Am I talking too fast? Oh, cool.
No.
Cool. Just checking. I can remember
Thanks.
sitting. Cool. Dankeschön. I can remember sitting on a gurney bed, those really uncomfortable hospital beds they use in the emergency rooms, oblivious to anything and wondering why I was sharing a room with a lady and a little boy. The doctors kept asking if I had seen my wife, and I started to get upset, getting upset as I hadn't. I couldn't even tell them what she looked like, her name, or even my name. It was silly when you look back, as they kept calling me Mr. Bryers. I should have known my first name was Mr. I had another very clear memory of them telling this lady that he was fine and he just has a migraine. And this lady then said, "Oh, well, we're off on a holiday so he can get some rest while we're away." Still no connection to who she was, even though I was, by coincidence, taking my family away the next day as well. The doctor then told her he, I understand now was me, would be in hospital for at least 3 to 6 months. Of course, you can imagine the look on the lady's face when she said, "For a migraine." I still don't remember when I made the connection to the lady sharing my cubicle, but at some point I realized she was Joy, my wife, and the little boy was Michael, my youngest son. One thing that kept coming to me over the following weeks and months was how grateful. Okay, who's unmuted? Quiet now? Happy?
Yes, she just muted herself.
Okay, cool. I remember it was that that had happened that day, and the day it did, and not while I was driving the vehicle with my precious load in the car. Well, to cut a long story short, after 3 episodes and having my butt planted into a wheelchair, I became quite depressed. I was at a rehab unit when the staff suggested that I have dinner with a friend. They organised it, and off I went. Young Karen is an amazing person and one of my greatest inspirations. This young lady had been in my first year's classes at University, Biology 101, but disappeared sometime during that first semester. She had a car accident and broke C1 at the top of the neck, at the base of the skull. Wasn't supposed to be able to breathe unaided, let alone live in a flat with a dog. I have sat in my wheelchair in awe of this amazing lady and pushed her wheelchair while she walked 21 meters around the rehab gym using a walking frame. Karen gave me the determination and the courage to keep moving, to keep living, and to live my life more joyfully. I thank you for her amazing example of courage and determination. My 4 children, Benjamin, Megan, Lara, and Michael, have also been such an inspiration and help to me. I don't remember feeling any judgment or displeasure from them as they work to overcome weakness and my inability to function as normal. My daughters will encourage me to sing with them to help me practice speech, making clear sounds. I recently watched an old video of me back then, and I was talking to a visitor at our home, and our 2 youngest were busy using me like a jungle gym or a climbing wall. They showed no fear and total trust in me that I would catch them. It was a hard time for them, all as they were unsure whether Dad would be home, at hospital, or even alive when they got home from school each day. At the time, it was a bone of contention as well as a source of perceived stress. But my oldest son had a delivery run. He delivered pamphlets and 2 letterboxes around our neighborhood, and I would spend the day folding and sorting into bundles. I made myself do this wherever and whenever possible, using my left hand to do the bulk of the work. This was extremely tiring, and at times I would simply pass out and sleep at the table while doing the job. At first, these sleeps were quite frequent, but as time progressed, I got more and more able, and they became less needed, and I became more agile and coordinated with my left side. At one point, I noticed I was becoming very left-handed. But 20 years down the line, I can still be driving my car and realize that my left hand has been planted in my lap unused. I would then make my hand participate in the driving process and hold the steering wheel. I've realized that I still need to function in a very conscious fashion, and that as I do this, my body then also functions well and fully. We become trapped in a habit of movement and use of our limbs. Consciously using my legs and noting how my feet stand as I walk allows me to hear and notice imbalances in my stride. I found this to be true of even the most able-bodied people that come to me for therapy. We get to a level of not thinking about our body and function from habit and very unconsciously. As they become more body aware and become more conscious, they're also noticing they move more fluidly. Often they comment on feeling less restrictions. One client I had the pleasure of working with for over a long period of time has always had the most amazing range of motion in his upper body. Surprising considering his profession, that of a diesel mechanic working on big trucks. He commented that he treated his work as his gym and was stretched through any restrictions he would feel, but his back pain wouldn't go away until we began addressing restrictions and imbalances in his lower back and legs. I recently watched him perform on stage with a group of friends and noticed that he, although being probably one of the oldest there, was the most agile and relaxed in his movements. There is a great deal to be said for being and moving more consciously through everyday life. In my journey towards wellness, I've had to make some really hard realizations about me and about life. I have had a lot of input from friends who cared, as well as from people who didn't. And it has been part of that journey to discover how to tell the difference. Some well-meaning, others just mean. But that's another story and another journey and another story. As part of my recovery, a lady I knew as Auntie Rangi offered to come and massage me on a weekly basis. This was both amazing and painful, but exciting at the same time. It seemed to reconnect the dots, so to speak, and reminded the brain that there was indeed a left side. We also found that my right side was extra sensitive and compensating for the lack of feeling on the left. This wonderful lady put me on the path of a journey of self-discovery and understanding that will last till and beyond my last breath. Her love and patience with me will live on. As I pay it forward to others with whom I have the honor and pleasure to work with and work for. A really good friend, Morgan, had just completed his training in rehabilitation and physio and care and came to visit. And I thought I was doing really well in recovery, but was shocked to discover how far I still had to go. He took me through a couple of simple tests, which demonstrated to me what was ahead. Morgan showed me a set of exercises to do, and these I did almost to distraction. Simple ones like putting my hand out in front of me, palm up, palm down. Yeah, easy to do with my eyes open. But when I shut my eyes, I ceased to feel my arm and my hand, and so couldn't tell if it was moving or not, let alone if it was up or down. It actually caused a deep feeling of fear and panic the first time I tried this exercise. It's interesting here. I find as a therapist, now I do the opposite and look away from what it is I'm massaging so that I can gain a better perception of what it is my hands are aware of within the tissue. When teaching massage, I would ask a student what they feel, and they would immediately look with their eyes, and thus turning off the perception and feel. As I got them to turn the sight off and perceive more with their hands and being, they in turn could go deep into the massage without force. I also tried a number of tried and true methods for improving my memory. Pieces of paper didn't work as I forgot I even had the piece of paper, and so resorted to writing on the back of my hand. This worked as long as I didn't wash my hands too thoroughly. Pieces of string didn't work, as one, I couldn't put it on the hand that had feeling, and two, if I put it on the hand that had no feeling, then I forgot it was there, and then forgot what the string was for. I had to carry my student ID with me everywhere, as when people asked me my name, even if they said, "Hey Greg, what's your name?" I didn't have a clue. An example was this. Was one day my wife asked me to go into a bank in town and cash a check for her. I was stressed and tired, but did as requested. And as I walked up to the teller, I realized I didn't know her, as I was unfamiliar with this branch, and suddenly I started to panic. The teller asked me if this was my check, and I could only reply that I thought so. Then she asked me my name, and there she had me. I didn't know. Fortunately, a staff member from the branch I normally go to was there, and she came to my rescue. After reassuring the teller that I was actually the person named on the check and that she knew me, I was given the money and sent on my way. It took me a long time before I would go into unfamiliar shops after that. At campus, I would only deal with department staff with whom I was familiar. Friends with whom I'd studied for the past 2.5 years were so patient and kind. They soon worked out that if I hadn't spoken to or seen them in the past couple of months, then there was a huge chance that I would not know their names. This I found very distressing, and after nearly 20 years of passing, it is still my biggest hurdle to overcome. Is any of this above familiar? I'm sure that if you've had a stroke or even head injury, you'll be able to relate to at least part of what I've said. Those of you who have family and friends that have been affected by strokes may also see similar situations with your loved ones and friends. The reason for the above stories is such to show that we all have similar issues, and some will vary to different extremes. You are normal, and I would like to tell you that they can be overcome, and things regather back into the whole of who you are. Whatever you perceive as you, you can recover to being fully normal or part thereof. It really just depends on you and what you are prepared to do to get there. I have had clients who have achieved results to various levels of recovery and stopped. Why? Because they'd done what they wanted to do and didn't want to put any more effort into moving further along. They are content with where they are. And I just have to learn to accept that. And I do. And love them for the lessons I've learned from them about me and the way I be. Let's just see. How long is this one? I think this is the long one. How are we?
Good.
Okay, because it's 9 o'clock. Okay, so we're up to signposts to a different path. I might just stop there, if that's okay. And if you have any questions, you can ask one or two.
May I?
Absolutely.
First of all, it was really touching, Greg, that you shared this story, and it was very emotional to see how you live through again. And therefore, I'm very grateful for you to take on this reading, because it must have been very hard and deep to have all these memories back. I don't know if you ever read the book like now. Not really.
I read it once and I was shocked.
So thank you, first of all. And I'm asking, how do you feel now? Are you okay, or how did it feel for you to read it?
It's interesting because my body remembers.
Of course.
And it's interesting to see how much my body remembers, but not so much of the hopelessness and the numbness. It remembers that too. I had to consciously hold the book with my left hand, even though I was reading it on the screen. But just the other stuff, the stuff that we, that energetic stuff that was there. Yeah.
Okay. I have questions, but I know we are more than me, so I'll let others ask if they have any question.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Greg. But if they don't or nobody comes forward, I can ask. I always have questions.
This lady has at least 4 pages of questions.
I do. Anybody else? Let me just ask first, because that's an interesting issue, that you work with both hands, and you just read that you didn't have your left hand sensing. How can you work with both hands, and how do you feel with your left now?
I don't know.
You don't feel it?
This hand hurts.
But you can still do the massage with 2 hands.
I can feel pressure. But if the water's too hot for this hand, I can still pull the plug out with this hand.
Don't do that.
Somebody asked someone that once too. Yeah. But it's I don't know how I do it. I don't even the doctors don't even know how I can pick up a glass and drink a glass of water and swallow without choking, because I have no gag reflex. I can't make myself sick.
I don't know what's that.
Well, when
I
people,
see. You don't have that. Yeah.
I can't make
I
myself
know.
sick.
I didn't know what you are doing now. You pull out something out of your mouth. Wow.
So.
And you wrote in the book, but there was no chance to remind you, and now you just read it. So please remind. So it says that, or has some suggestion that it wasn't your first stroke then.
It wasn't. We found out that I'd had one when I was 17, riding my motorbike.
What do you mean you found out? How did it
when they
pop up?
did the tests, the neurologist and the cardiologist said, have you ever felt like this before? And I said, oh yeah. There was one time I was riding my motorbike and had this total sense of euphoria and joy, and I was riding along, and I can remember coming up to this easy corner, and my last thought was, shit, I'm not going to make this. And it wasn't a fast bike. It was an old, slow motorbike, so I wasn't going too fast. And I couldn't turn the motorbike. And friends, this is again where I know that I'm protected and guided, because friends decided to come home the long way instead of going home the fastest route, and they found me on the side of the road. Otherwise, I was actually in the ditch, so I wasn't visible from the road. And they found me, and my bike was 50 meters further up the road. And but I remember the next day coming to an hospital and not being able to move my left arm. It was really heavy. And they just said, oh, you've pulled some muscles. Because people who ride motorbikes in New Zealand have no help in hospitals. So, yeah. So it turns out that I've had 4 strokes, and the best thing. So
yeah. Oops. Sorry.
Oops.
It wasn't a stroke, it was a flip. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your question. That's actually the first time somebody's asked me that one.
You see?
Yeah,
I'm reading
voila.
carefully your book. I was just reading while you were reading because I marked my questions there so I could follow where you are.
Cool. Well, anything else? Anyone else? No? Cool.
Yeah, I will have.
Yeah, I know you will have. We have many. Yeah.
We will have a private chat next time if no one has a question.
Did you ever ask your children why they trusted you, although they knew that your body didn't function, let's say, correct?
No. And they couldn't even answer that now. They knew that if I put something into my left hand, it would stay there and it would lock. And then you could take that thing out of my left hand and my arm would stay there. It would go spastic and would just stay there. And I'd have to look at something else before it would slowly start to relax. So they knew I was still super strong and everything else, but just didn't have the control. So I'd have this hand out here, my daughter would just fall back against my hand, knowing that as soon as the pressure came on, it would stop. Yeah. But they just did. They trusted me. It still blows my mind when I watch the video. So yeah.
I have to say something, Greg. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sylvia.
No, it's okay. I don't want to keep asking because we are many of us. So
no problem. Go ahead. All good.
Okay, I had one question about NDE, near-death experience. How do you feel about nowadays meeting people with the same experience, or if you read about this topic, does it bring it back to you, or does it make you feel good, or on the contrary, that you don't want to get close to the topic because it reminds you what you lost?
No problem. It's like the book you gave me from, is it Tibor? Okay.
Yes.
Reading his story is like, oh yeah. It's so totally, but again, he's describing from his filters, but it's the same energy, it's the same story.
Yeah.
And for me, this is exciting because it means it wasn't just my imagination. There's a collective imagination out there somewhere where there's a whole bunch of us that are becoming idiots because we saw the light and heard a voice.
Do you recognize one another if you meet someone with the same experience?
Many times. Many times. We had a man in class in Paris, and he was pretending he hadn't died, hadn't had an out-of-body experience. It's like, stop that shit. Don't lie to me. I totally feel it. It's there. And when he hugs people, you see the energy of that hug, and it's different to somebody who's had no experience.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's really cool. You watch him, this guy, Eves, would hug somebody, and you just see them go, oh. No, he didn't know what to do with it, so he get a bit silly with it. But still, there's that energy of that no judgment and that kindness that's there. It's beautiful. I mean, it's not about how strongly he squeezed, but for him, he didn't learn that. But there was still this other energy that he wanted to share, and he didn't know where it's come from, but he just knows it's there. And yeah, I'm sorry, I see it. Too many times, lots of times. There's lots of people that don't have the memory of it, but their body remembers something.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michaela,
thank you. Huh?
I give back Michaela the word. The mic, I pass it on.
You mentioned it first, Greg, and so I have to say it. It was really fascinating because while you are reading, your voice totally changed, and it was very difficult for me to understand you because it seemed like you have a stroke or something. Your voice was really Renate verschwommen. Renate?
Unclear? Yeah. Not clear.
Verschwommen. Hörst du mich?
Yeah, not
Can you
clear.
tell from Renate? But she can't hear me. So I will try them now. It seemed like you are, or your body felt the stroke again because your voice was totally different, and it was very hard for me to understand you. It was fascinating, and for me, it seemed that your body really remembered while reading.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Because as soon as you finished, you are totally different, and the voice is much clearer and strange.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'll work on that for tomorrow night.
That was not the reason why I want to share it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Cool. Thank you.
It was fascinating to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I seem to go back in space and time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was totally perceivable.
Cool. Well, I'm going to stop the recording, and then we're going to go down and finish cooking my dinner. And